Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we invite you to just set aside the stress of your day because we are embarking on a journey into, well, pure tranquility and imagination. This is a deep dive into the legendary lost city of Atlantis, but we're not treating it as a historical puzzle to be solved.
No, not at all. Think of it more as a blueprint for a hidden paradise, something designed to inspire a sense of wonder.
Exactly. We're stepping into the realm of myth, of philosophy, and treating these ancient accounts as our guide to a world of breathtaking beauty.
And our main guide, really our only primary guide for this, comes from the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, specifically his dialogues Timaeus and Critias.
Which were written around 360 BC.
That's right, and he describes this massive, unbelievably powerful island empire that was tragically, well, it was swallowed by the Atlantic Ocean.
The lost paradise. To really appreciate the scale of it, I think we have to start at the very beginning, with its divine origin story.
It's the only place to start, really. It all begins when the great deities divided the earth among themselves.
And the island of Atlantis was given to.
The sea deity, Poseidon, was his rightful allotment.
Yeah.
And on the island, he chose a central mountain where a mortal woman named Plato lived, and he founded the island's royal lineage right there with her.
A lineage that was, what, half god, half mortal?
Precisely. From their union came 10 sons, all demigods, and they established 10 separate kingdoms across the island.
And the eldest, Atlas, became the great king.
He was crowned the rightful king, yes. And it's in his honor that the surrounding ocean, the Atlantic, gets its name. So this connection, this magical, watery foundation between the ruling family and the sea itself, it really permeated their entire civilization.
That divine rooting sets the stage for everything that comes after, especially the sheer geometric brilliance of their capital city.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack that city center, because this is where the materials and the just meticulous planning really start to paint a picture of extraordinary luxury.
It really is the central architectural marvel. Poseidon himself is said to have carved Plato's mountain into this incredible structure. He created a city defined by perfect, almost astonishing concentric symmetry.
So it's surrounded by these moats.
3 circular moats, yes, separated by proportional rings of land.
3 rings of land, 3 rings of water. The level of planning is just. It's mind-boggling. Plato even gives us the dimensions, right? Right. And he mentioned stadia.
He does.
For anyone listening who might not be familiar with ancient measurements, what kind of scale are we talking about here?
That's a crucial piece of context for the sheer size. A stadion was an ancient Greek measure, roughly 600 feet or about 180 meters.
So the moats, which were 1, 2, and 3 stadia wide.
You're talking about massive defensive and transport moats. The smallest was 600 feet wide. It wasn't just a fortification, it was a gigantic, perfectly engineered aquatic system.
And what truly captures the imagination, for me, is the material itself. We always hear Atlantis described as the city of gold, of glowing metals. Where does that imagery come from?
It's rooted right there in the source material, in the construction. The walls of each land ring were built from stone they quarried directly from the moats. So you had red, white, and black stone.
But the spectacle was the sheathing, the veneers.
Absolutely. The walls were covered in these brilliant shining metals. Brass, which would have just glittered, covered the innermost ring.
Okay.
Tin was applied to the middle ring, and the outermost ring, the one facing the sea, was covered with the most precious and mysterious metal that Plato called orichalcum.
Orichalcum, that's the one. It sounds like something pulled straight out of a fairy tale.
It really is the defining feature of Atlantean luxury. Plato describes it as glowing with this faint, warm light. It was incredibly valuable, second only to gold.
And it wasn't just decorative.
No, not at all. In the central temple, the one dedicated to Poseidon and Plato, the laws of the empire, their entire legal code was inscribed on a massive pillar made entirely of this glowing orichalcum.
Wow. So their laws had this almost magical authority. Their whole civilization was literally built on a shimmering, rare commodity.
It was. And the engineering that tied this metallic city together was, just as sophisticated. It showed a real mastery of fluid dynamics.
They were masters of water management.
Complete masters. They carved these enormous tunnels directly into the rings of rock and land.
So that ships could pass right through.
Right through the fortifications, across the moats, and dock in the very heart of the city, right around that central mountain. These weren't just decorative canals. They were a circulatory system for a global empire.
And ancient Venice, but on a superhuman scale.
A very good way to put it. A masterpiece of symmetry and fluid motion.
So if we move from the architecture out to the surrounding landscape, the sources describe Atlantis as more than just a high-tech city. It was a literal garden.
Yes, a land of profound, effortless abundance. Plato says the earth just seemed to cooperate with them. It provided everything they needed in infinite abundance.
Things that were fair and wondrous. I love that phrase.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
It paints such a relaxing picture. The descriptions of the natural bounty. Fragrant things like roots, rare herbage, strange woods, essences from fruit and flowers.
It sounds like the very air was perfumed.
It really does.
And their diet reflected that richness. You know, they had cultivated fruits, specialized grains, legumes, what Plato called pulse, but then also these hard-rind fruits they used for drinks, for meats, for ointments.
It seems like the earth just gave them everything they didn't have to struggle for.
That's the impression. And that natural wealth translated directly into incredible comforts and advanced public infrastructure.
Right, the springs.
The hot and cold natural springs. They didn't just let them run wild. They carefully directed the flow through this intricate system of aqueducts.
To create public bathing areas.
Yes, but these were major social and infrastructural hubs. They had separate, carefully maintained bathing areas for private citizens, for the royal house, for women. And this is the detail that just speaks volumes about their refinement.
The horses.
Special bathing pools constructed specifically for their horses.
Bathing pools for the royal horses. It just confirms we're talking about a civilization focused on refinement and, well, luxury. This was a globally engaged, immensely wealthy superpower.
No question. The economic breadth was staggering. They engaged in widespread intercontinental trade, and they were also incredibly rich in their own exportable goods. Quarry stone, excellent timber, livestock, and of course,
Vast quantities of the raw orichalcum ore.
exactly. And the island itself, Plato says it was larger than ancient Libya and Asia Minor combined,
Colossal. It really was an empire of unparalleled size and reach.
which sets up the central philosophical tension of the entire story. If it was so perfect, why did it fall?
Right. Plato's whole purpose here was to deliver a moral lesson, wasn't it? About hubris.
It was entirely a philosophical lesson. Their prosperity, their greatness, it was all conditional.
Conditional on what?
On their adherence to the laws set down by Poseidon. The laws carved into that glowing pillar of orichalcum. But as their power and wealth grew, they started to stray.
Their divine nature became...
That's how Plato puts it. They began mixing more with mortals, and their mortal ambitions started to override their divine virtue. They shifted from appreciating their gifts to craving external power.
They became militaristic.
Precisely. They decided they weren't content with their own massive empire. They launched a campaign of conquest, trying to subjugate the rest of the known world, specifically targeting, well, a simpler, more virtuous society. Ancient Athens.
And the consequence for violating that divine order was swift.
It was absolute and instantaneous. When the gods saw that the Atlanteans had lost their moral compass, they intervened. In a single terrible day and night, the island just disappeared into the depths of the sea.
Earthquakes and floods.
Violent earthquakes and floods. And the cataclysm didn't just sink the land. It left behind what Plato calls an impassable shoal of mud, making that part of the ocean forever impenetrable, preserving the secret.
And that mystery, that sudden disappearance, is what really captured the imagination of people centuries later. I'm thinking of figures like Ignatius Donnelly in the 19th century.
Donnelly, yes. His 1882 book basically took that legend and amplified the sense of wonder. He turned Atlantis into the source of all human advancement.
He argued it was a technologically superior, a far more advanced culture than any that followed. The mother culture.
The mother culture, exactly. He proposed this idea called hyperdiffusionism.
Which sounds complicated.
It does, but the basic idea is simple. He suggested that all the major elements of ancient civilization pyramids, writing, agriculture, didn't evolve independently in different places.
But rather, they diffused outward from one single point.
From Atlantis. He claimed it was the original Garden of Eden, and that the gods of Greece and Egypt were just deified Atlantean kings and heroes whose stories survived the flood.
That's the romantic view that gives us the image of the super civilization most of us think of today.
It is. It's compelling to imagine that our greatest achievements are just fragmented memories of a singular golden age.
And while that original massive Atlantis remains hidden, the magic of discovery, the idea of a sunken city, it lives on. It echoes in real-world archaeology.
It really does. And this brings us to a real lost city, one that embodies that same sense of sudden underwater discovery. I'm talking about Pavlopetri in Greece.
Petri is incredible because it confirms that, yes, planned cities really can sink and be found centuries later, essentially intact.
It validates the physical possibility, that's for sure. And it was found almost by chance in 1967, then fully mapped a year later using aerial photography and sonar.
And it's the oldest known submerged planned city, dating back to 2800 BC.
And the mapping revealed this incredibly well-preserved layout. A clear grid pattern of streets, distinct neighborhoods, even buildings with up to 12 rooms. It proves sophisticated urban planning existed in the Bronze Age, only to be swallowed by the sea.
There's a prosperous port, right, not just a village.
A thriving hub. There's clear evidence of pottery and metalworking industries. Most researchers believe it suffered a catastrophic end from earthquakes around 1000 BC.
And that sudden dramatic fate.
It may very well have helped inspire the enduring tale of the sunken city as it was passed down through oral traditions, creating a perfect canvas for Plato's philosophical allegory.
When we look at other potential inspirations, the Thera eruption on Santorini often comes up.
Oh, yes. The Santorini eruption was a massive volcanic event that devastated the Minoan civilization. The sheer scale of that disaster could certainly have inspired the imagery of a civilization vanishing in a single day and night.
And what about any geographical connections to the Atlantic itself?
Well, far out in the Atlantic, the Azores Islands have often been suggested as the remaining mountaintops of a sunken continent. Now, modern geology tells a different story. They're volcanic seamounts rising up, not sinking, but they remain this tangible geographical link that lets the magic of the myth persist.
It's a reminder that whether it was real or an allegory, the imagery of Atlantis, the divine founders, the perfect rings, the glowing orichalcum, it creates such a powerful and lasting vision of what a hidden paradise could look like.
It absolutely does. And, as we wrap up this dive, I think it's worth focusing on the nature of knowledge itself. Plato specifically mentions that the Atlantis story was supposedly translated from extremely ancient Egyptian records.
By the Athenian lawgiver Solon. That detail is so critical.
It is because it suggests the knowledge survived the catastrophe by traveling. It means the memory of this advanced civilization, hidden away in ancient temples thousands of miles away, survived for millennia, just waiting to be rediscovered.
So it reinforces the idea that true wonder is always there, preserved just beneath the surface of the world we know.
Exactly. Sometimes as a physical city, and sometimes just as a fragment of a story.
The ultimate wonder isn't the lost city itself, but the fact that the memory of such a paradise could never truly be erased. Something for you to ponder the next time you look out at the seemingly silent ocean.